Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
Here we are, dude. It's Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Friday,
TGIF. Dude, did you ever watch TGIF growing up?
Shit, dude.
Dude, I swear, every Monday morning, I'd be like, I can't wait till TGIF, Boy Meets World. No, was it Boy Meets World?
Eventually, I think it made it on there. Dude, pizza and TGIF.
Yep.
Like that, I live for that.
Dude, I tell people out here in California all the time that pizza's a real thing every single Friday back on the East Coast. They're like, you guys eat pizza every single Friday? They're like, yeah, well, that's the minimum. They're like pizza, like real pizza. I'm like, yeah, real pizza. They're like, that much cheese every single Friday. Like that was, again, usually like, I don't know, maybe once or twice throughout the week.
Yep.
And they're like, do you guys actually eat cheesesteaks too? I'm like, yeah, I know a guy who eats a cheesesteak and pizza every single week.
Yeah, man.
I used to think that was normal. I mean,
I remember it was, dude, Friday pizza night. It was at least 4 or 5 slices. It was as many as I could possibly eat.
Oh yeah.
If I was babysitting, like I was in charge of the pizza funds, I ordered myself a whole pie and I ate the whole thing. And I masturbated in my parents' bedroom because they had a private TV. So I ate an entire pizza and then I masturbated multiple times. Sorry, dude, you're taking me back.
That's hilarious. Jubal Cover says partying. Oh man, that's awesome. How'd the week go, bro?
Dude, it went well, man. I mean, dude,
I can't get over that.
I can show you better than I can tell you, but there's all kinds of colors and streaks going on over there.
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah, dude. No, the week went well. I just stuck to the systems. I give myself leeway on Tuesdays just because it's the day I do Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast, and it's like, I'm all over the place doing a bunch of stuff. So I still surprisingly got a lot of the stuff done on Tuesday. I just do like a shortened version of things. But yeah, dude, the week killer, man. I'm almost done my second episode of the logotherapy thing for Psychnol. I'm gonna wrap that up today. But yeah, dude, awesome. Just again, sticking to my actual not being like, well, I kind of feel like doing this thing. Just no, every single day. I go to make sure I'm in bed by 10 p.m. I'm up. I take 3 deep breaths, pop out of bed. Anything longer than that, and I don't get my little red star for getting up. Meditating, journaling, exercise, and then 2 work blocks, dude, every single day.
How does Brittany feel about the only taking 3 breaths and up? Because I know that for my girlfriend, she likes to cuddle, for a while and all that stuff. And I'm not, I actually like that too. So how does she take that?
Sorry, someone who said women don't sleep. That was a rumor we were starting on Matt and Shane's. They don't. Shane was saying they don't dream, and I was like, I don't think they sleep. Yeah. So what she does is she hits me with a little ankle hook. She'll hook my leg with her leg, and I just kind of I rub it for a little. I don't push it off me. I rub it and I say, good morning, and I get out. Luckily, here's the thing. I get up so early that she's such a sleepyhead that there's not much of a resistance. If I'm waking up, when she wakes up, an hour or so later, then it's a battle. But she wants nothing to do with getting up and out of bed at that time. So to answer your question, yeah, it's just get up. If they kind of leg lock you in bed, just wake up 2 hours earlier than them, and they usually kind of they're depleted.
It's a good method, man.
Yeah.
And I want to give the guys some props on the Discord. The Discord is hot and heavy on the men's weight loss team. I don't have any calculations yet because I'm building the back end to be able to calculate everything on the teams and so on. So I'll do that over the weekend. But people are crushing it on the weight loss.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, dude. I broke into the 170s. Pretty happy about that.
Hell yeah, man. That's
Pretty
awesome.
pumped, pretty pumped.
And I got it. There's a weird universe thing here, and I'm not sure if he was just joking around, but Adrift for Days. His name's Matt. Um, he says he had a strange sort of scenario that his name is Matt, and his best friend growing up is named Wes Rollins, and he said it's a sign. I don't know if he's joking about that, but if he's
Yeah,
on
dude.
that, I don't know if that's a weird universe thing.
Might have to get them both on if it's real.
Yeah, well, so funny enough, just a quick little side note story. Matt and I were in college, and Matt, I'm probably going to tell this story wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong at all. But Matt and I have had like a million weird universe things happen to us, like a lot. So anyway, he's at a party with his brother's party, and a girl comes up to him who is his friends with his brother, and they were just talking, and she said, "Oh, Matt said something like, my buddy Wes is going to come over," and she said, "That's a weird name. My uncle's name is Wes," and then Matt was like, "Yeah, my buddy Wes Rollins," and then she's like, "That's my uncle's name," and turns out it's my father, who I don't know. So just weird.
Yeah, that was
universe
crazy, actually. I forgot all about that. She kept hounding me, man. She'd be like, ooh, I'm like, dude.
Yeah. So just this random girl at a random party is my father's niece, who I've never met, and I barely met my dad. And then just it led down this really weird rabbit hole. Anyway, super
it's
weird.
fucking nuts, man. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, man, I wanted to throw. Oh, sorry. Good.
No, I'm saying. I'm just pumped. That was just a pumped dude. It was just like, dude.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to throw this out there just to be like super candid with everybody, and also because other men are probably dealing with this, and because I don't display a lot of emotion. It can be perceived that I don't have it, but I can tell you guys right now, like I'm trying to get into the next level of life, career, etc., especially with the finance. So I passed the finance test on Monday, literally by the skin of my teeth. It was a 75 score, and I got literally a 75.
Hell yeah.
So, but I can say for sure, man, like I'm feeling the pressure, like 100% feeling the pressure. And the best way I could describe it is every single time I kind of break the seal of getting into the next level. And thank you everybody for saying congrats. I appreciate it. But I'm giving you kind of the dark side as well. Every time I break the seal to like peeking into the next level, I kind of feel like when you played video games when you were younger, like every time you got to a next level, like you died instantly because you didn't recognize the environment, right? It was just hell, right? So you had no idea what you're doing. And I feel that every single time. Feel a certain level of anxiety, certain level of fear, certain level of just like disorientation because you have no idea what to expect. And also you kind of have this like, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. Like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here, and I don't think that I'm skilled enough. So I have all the time in my head, like 100%. So I just wanted to put it out there. And by the way, I don't know how to cope with it, right? Like I just kind of use the tools that I've been given, and they rarely seem sufficient. The only thing that seems sufficient is just like keep taking it on the chin, and then eventually you get good at that new level, if that makes sense. So you have to die a certain amount of times at that new level, and then all of a sudden it's not even like it's a cognizant thing, but then one day you wake up, you're like, wow, this is actually easy now. Yep. But I just wanted to put it out there in case any other guys are feeling that way, because if anybody thinks for 1 second that I don't feel that way just because I don't share, like I don't show a lot of emotion, dude, I feel that way every single time. Like I'm feeling it big time right now, like big time.
Yeah, what specifically is it like the processes that kind of like you're up to, or is it like the lack of knowledge in a certain area? Like what is the exact thing, if you could have pinpoint it down?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's sort of a cocktail effect. It's number one, the first and foremost thing is always time. Like, do I have my schedule's already packed? I already wake up at, literally from start to finish, like I'm active, wake up, and then till the time I go to bed, there is no rest, and I'm not saying that as like some sort of He-Man thing. I'm just saying that to be logistically honest. You would never come across me and see me watching like, a movie, at least and if I am watching a movie, it's I'm watching it with my girlfriend or her family to build the relationship value. But on my own, nothing. It's just start to finish. So then when I go into a new phase, it's like, okay, well, the schedule's already packed. How am I going to add this extra thing in there?
and my brain can't do the calculations, but somewhere along the path, it figures it out.
Yep.
So there's that. And then there's just, I'm not skilled. Like right now for this new finance certification that I got, it will allow me to process a whole different type of business, right? That I don't do currently. So I don't know how to do that. And I have to rely on other people to do it. So I hate sucking at things, even though it is kind of refreshing to be a beginner, but that brings a certain amount of, nervousness to it. I think that's it. And then probably the third one is like, people will know that I'm not good at this. Right?
Sure.
So it's time. It's that I'm not going to be good at it. And then people will know that I'm not good at it, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So this is what I try to do. What part of the process do you kind of excel at? Even if it's kind of like say they know more about kind of like the lingo and kind of inner workings of certain things within the new venture. Is there perhaps something you could focus on that's more of like sales oriented or goal setting oriented or organizing oriented, that kind of that way you're not just kind of showing up and being like, oh, I don't really know, but you're kind of doing your thing and then also just kind of absorbing all the information as it give you, or just say, hey, I don't know. I'm sure you've done this, but like, I don't really know shit about this thing right now. So, like what is the best? In my opinion, what helps me is just to be as honest as possible. And it takes all that weird pressure off, because I've done it before. I've done it at jobs where they're like, I was doing just painting houses and they would be like, I would get dropped off at a place and like, you good to do this thing? And I'd look at it and be like, nope, in my head. And then my mouth would be like, yep. And then all day long, I would just be like, oh, shit, I don't know how to do this. And it's like, God, that's the worst feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like I said, then now I know how to do it. Now I can kind of start to finish, for the most part, paint a house. Unless you go through that pressure cooker, dude, it's like, you don't really, it's kind of necessary.
Yeah. So, my method is kind of one of the things that you said in there, Matt. And by the way, to me, you are pixelated, so you can very much scream at Crowdcast.
Weird. You're pixelated too.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna get them.
So yeah, Matt and I have been trying to figure out this Crowdcast thing and becoming pixelated because we've both done all the tests, testing our systems, etc. Anyway, so the thing that I have found, I do not like the fake it till you make it thing. I don't like that. I think it works for some people. I think maybe for certain circumstances, like you kind of have to play the role. But I think for me, at least 99% of the time, and in fact, I can't remember a time where I faked it. Instead, I prefer to do just like very massive disclaimers. Like I actually just made one this week. I talked to a client, and for this new area of finance that we can operate in, I told him he's in the space of looking for that transaction to be done. And I told him, I said, hey, and this is actually a very effective sales method that I have used. I say, hey, if you're already like down the certain road with this transaction, totally cool. But I wanted to throw it out there. I would love to compete for the business. That's a line that I use all the time. I would love to compete with the business. So I don't ask for a favor. I don't make it weird. I don't say like, hey, like, can I do that? I just say, I would love to compete for the business, or I would love to earn the business. But then for this new area, then I said to this guy, I said, hey, I would love to compete for the business, but just to be like 100% candid, I've never done it before. So like, if you do it with me, it will most likely be clunky. And now his response was, he's like, hell yeah. He's like, absolutely, I'll do it with you. Now, the reason that he said that was because I've followed through, at least to the best of my knowledge, followed through on every promise I've ever given this guy. So we've had a relationship for several years at this point. So I didn't fake it. Right. And I was super honest with them. And I even exaggerated the downside. Like, if you do this with me, it will be clunky. I just want to let you know that. But I would still love to earn the business. Now, the fundamental things, and Matt, you kind of asked this question a couple minutes ago. The fundamental things for him, I'm assuming his perception of me is I'm always honest. Like I always tell him, and I always follow through for him. So there's some underlying stuff there that regardless of the transaction, the values are there. So probably in his mind, he knows like, oh, okay, well, yeah, Wes might stumble through this, but he's probably being too humble or something like that. So it's probably not going to be as chaotic as he's saying. And also, at least I know, especially within finance, he's being honest with me. There's not some sort of hidden charge. There's not some sort of like, it's just like, so that what I would say is the fundamental that's going to follow through all of the levels. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. And in terms, if I had to kind of like do a mortgage like or whatever kind of thing, whatever. I'm sorry. That'd be whenever I deal with people on like with finance stuff that I don't know, I always think they're fucking me. Like I just think they're gonna fuck me over, and then they show me all the numbers, and I'm like, I don't know, you guys, you're hitting me with like 10 percentages at once. So yeah, I think that's really that's something I think you can really rest assured at. Just, people who will deal with you know that you're not going to screw them over. And,
Yeah.
I feel like that'll be a good thing to lead with. So
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer your original question, it's that's on the client side, but then I also need other people to help me with this, so who are going to kind of mentor me. And I always lead with like, guys, I just don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to try my best, but the fundamental values are still there. I will still pound the phones like nobody else will pound the phones. Like, I will work until whenever it takes. And I have found, put it this way, I have not found a person yet that can beat me in that game. They can beat me on the taxes, especially if they've been doing it for years, but they will not beat me. I've slept over at the office before, and I will do that. Like, just because I've got the competitive psycho thing in my brain, just my ego will not allow me. I will stay at the office 7 days a week if I need to, if I know that there's another guy on the other side of that wall who's willing to do it. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, like I said, I think this is like, and I'm sure you know this, but it's a temporary thing. And I think, like I said, if you stick with your fundamentals that got you through the other one, I think they can, the extraneous knowledge that'll just come. The fundamental stuff. That's the hard stuff to build, man. I swear to God, it's like that's the difficult stuff, and it really is like just like you were saying, like just the same systems of like just I got to pound the phones, I got to do this, I got to do that. Not bullshit people, basically. I feel like that will kind of translate. There's this idea in psychology, like things are transdiagnostic, where it's like they work for addiction, they work for marriage counseling, they work all across the board because they're so fundamental that they just almost apply to everything.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I just wanted to be honest and candid with everybody. It's like, dude, I'm feeling it like hardcore right now. And especially with COVID, I think one of the things of being somebody, and I think all of us men are on this podcast are like, if you're going to be a leader, I think a big part of leadership means you are expected to make decisions. I think that's a very large percent of the pie of being a leader, because the majority of people do not want to make decisions. Like they just don't. They will give you their opinion like crazy, and it's insane. And it's so funny. Like, I test this almost every single week. The amount of people willing to give their opinions is like 90% of people. And then I always have a follow-up question. I say, okay, I give them some version of like, okay, what's the decision? Oh, well, it's, and then they figure some sort of, linguistic gymnastics to get out of the call.
Yep.
And then it's bounced back. It's like, well, what do you think? It's like, I didn't ask you what, like, you just gave me your opinion. What's the call? And they refuse to do it. Refuse to do it. And they say, well, I don't know. So give me a percentage. Nope. Won't give me a percentage. Like, tell me the level of certainty that you're willing to say. And obviously, when finance, I get to see this all the time, because the amount of times where people tell me, oh, I knew that X, Y, and Z company was going to go up. It's like, no, you didn't. If you knew, then I could look at your financial statements and I could see that you purchased this asset on that day. If you knew, right? If you were being literal about the word, I knew this, right? The terminology, I knew this. But it's just a human condition. So anyway, COVID has forced me to make a lot of tough decisions with family. Like, flying back home, I had to tell my mom, like, no, you cannot come out here. I cannot fly back. Right now, it's my grandmom's birthday, where I had to make a very tough. I've never missed any of my family members' birthdays since I moved out to California. Flew home, red eye, in there for their birthday. 10 hours later, I'm back home, like that sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. This year, can't do it. And people don't necessarily, like, that's a hard call, a really hard call. And there's a lot of emotion to it. So anyway, all of these things, I'm just being candid with everybody, all of these things, like, it puts a certain amount of pressure. And there's a lot of us men who just don't talk about that pressure, but trust me, everybody feels it. I feel it all the time, especially when I'm breaking into a new element.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. And going to the decision thing too, especially in relation, I mean, business obviously, but in relationships, it really, like, that's something I would do where I'll like kind of, I'll be like, oh, whatever, it's cool. And I'll outsource a lot of the decisions to, I'll do it to Brittany all the time. And I think that can get kind of overwhelming, where even if you're, a lot of times, especially in a relationship, you don't want to make the wrong call and have them like, I told you, blah, 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 blah. But like anymore, I just go like, I honestly don't care whether it's right or wrong. I've just tried to really get in the habit of being like, here's what we're doing. I mean, even like little shit, like, should we pick up the baby's crying? Should we let her wait 5 minutes? Because, you want to like kind of see if they're like hungry or not. It might just wake up and just be making noise. Like letting somebody out, like just being like, all right, well, put my hands up, like, you're in charge of this stuff. It's like, I really stopped doing that and been a lot more proactive, even in like larger family stuff that could be really uncomfortable. like we had like a bit of a kind of a family meeting with like my extended family with my in-laws, and it's like, just stepping up in ways that I normally would not do at all. I would just completely shirk away from, and it's like it's like super uncomfortable, but it is in the end super rewarding. And it's like, when things seem a little chaotic, or you're watching a thing like, I don't know about that, it needs your input. It really kind of does. Especially that goes both ways. Sometimes people kind of like just like get their hands in everything, but if you're kind of sitting on the sidelines a lot, it really does help to like just hop in there and do your thing. But to your point of making decisions, it's like, yeah, they have to be made, and it's like you just can't have it both ways, and you just never know what's going to happen too. So it's like you have to we're constantly this is why people don't want to make them, because at the end of the day, we just don't know, and you have to do one way or the other, otherwise you kind of just sideline yourself, and then it's like then you don't do anything. So,
yeah, exactly. I think one thing that has helped me, and maybe will help some of us other guys, is I always define a decision in terms of probability. Always. What's the probability of the occurrence? And then what is the consequence of the decision? Those two factors are very important. But also, very important to understand, in my opinion, that a good decision does not mean that it was the best outcome for yourself, if that makes sense. So, for instance, you could play the lottery and you could win. That does not mean that playing the lottery was a good decision. In fact, it was a very bad decision, right? Because the odds are, let's just say it's 1%, even though it's clearly not 1%. It's like 1 out of like 2 million, something crazy. If you just got lucky, you came out on the correct side of the odds, right? Now, if you're okay with taking that risk and you know the probability and you've thought through the probability, then maybe it was the right decision for you. But to not think through the probability, right, and to come out on the right side of the odds and to label that as the right decision, in my opinion, is an error in decision making. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those and this is kind of where you get into the stuff I'm working on right now with the logotherapy stuff, is like and the probability stuff I think is really good to do. And then there's also kind of another level where you are at the end of the day, you are kind of running on some sort of intuitive thing that you can't really discern ultimately, where you're just kind of like, I feel like this is the way to go. And it's like, just because you follow that thing, or like your inner voice, doesn't mean like, just like you're saying, doesn't mean you'll get a great outcome every time. But you are acting in almost a genuine way with yourself, where you're not putting on like a false persona or trying to like, just not be who you are. You can be who you are, and you might run into a wall, but then now, maybe you had a bad outcome. But if you zoom out on that, it's like, well, it's really good. That's a bad outcome now. Now you can actually, refine your decision-making process, rather than just kind of like you were saying, Wes, just being like all opinion. And it's like, all right, what's the call? And it's like, and dude, I do that all the time. And it's like, I've made a very conscious effort to stop doing that, because it's like, I've seen, especially, I think a lot about like, having to be the one now kind of leading a family. And it's a kind of a terrifying thing. But it's like, I've seen it, man, growing up, where like I remember like it was like one of my brothers, like, ex-girlfriends from high school. I remember their dad came over, mom and dad came over, and it was just like, I just watched this lady just fucking just walk all over this dude. And it was the point where we all were just like, oh, I was young. And like, to the point, the guy had like a couple Coors Lights, and the wife was like, that's enough for you. Like, literally had like 2 Coors Lights. And maybe that was maybe that was like what you should do. But in my head, I'm like, my dad drinks so many more beers than that guy. I remember thinking, it's like, and it wasn't just that. It was just like, dude, just get fucking, and it's like, even, and you can rationalize that very easily. Like, oh, I'm just keeping the peace. But like, I've heard of people whose children had serious resentment towards the parent who kind of just let the other one just kind of run amok. And it's like, hey man, I was trying to keep the peace. It's like, no, you were being a coward. And it's like, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's like, dude, it's like, you got to at least, and it's not like you have to be like somebody just kind of like a tyrant. It's like, obviously take feedback from all sides, but at the end of the day, it's like someone's got to roll the dice, and it's like, you better be willing to do it.
Do you have a methodology of making group-based decisions? Because one of the things that I have seen is if I jump too quickly and just say like, no, this is how it's going to go, like, boom, decide. The first thing is I've committed to always making a decision. I made that commitment years ago. It's like, I will always make a decision. There is nothing in that circumstance where I'm going to be the guy who just gives my opinion. So I'm already committed to that. But I did notice that when I started that, I like came right out of the gate and just like would make the decision before I let other people talk. I've since noticed that now my methodology is I put the thing on the table and I let everybody give their opinion. I say, is anybody willing to make a call on this? And then if they're not, then I make the decision. Does that make sense? Like, do you have a similar methodology, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I used to do something too where I like you were saying, I would kind of fall on the side of it where I'm like, I got to start making more decisions, and I would make them like snap and like real kind of rash, and and I found that didn't really work the best. So yeah, I'll think about it. I'll almost kind of make it up. I'll make my decision kind of, and then I won't say it. And then I'll bring the situation to other people and like get other people's feedback. And there might be something I wasn't considering, and like, oh yeah, perfect, that's great. But it's pretty much the same thing. I'll usually try to like bring up, to everybody involved, like, here's what I'm thinking. Like, what do you think? And then, just if I don't have some sort of thing that's so persuasive that I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, let me do that, which I will do. I'll just go ahead and make it how I do it. But I do try to like think through it myself, run it by a couple people to kind of check for blind spots. And then, at a certain point, you have to just kind of, do it.
Yeah, I would throw the challenge out to the guys. If you have, any experience today or over the weekend, and you'll notice like decision-making opportunity is all around us. It happens many times throughout the day. If you found yourself sitting on the sidelines for those types of things, make the call. Just practice it, because it is for sure a muscle. And by the way, it doesn't go as planned all the time. Like in your career, that's probably career and family. That's where it's going to be the most risky to make the decisions, but the decisions have to be fucking made. I can tell you, like, I've had many decisions go south, and then it's just the way you resolve that is you just lay on your sword. Like I've had clients where, stuff goes south, and I had to tell a client probably like last year, it went pretty south for him. And he came to me and said, hey, was this the case? I said, yeah. Like, if you remember, I had to make the decision because you were not willing to. And I made the call because it was literally, we were on a deadline, and I did. And unfortunately, it came out on the wrong end. Now, he and I had a great rapport. He's like, I remember that, and you're right. He's like, I was not willing to pull the trigger. He's like, I needed someone like you. And he's like, unfortunately, we just came out on the wrong end. So I think if you do it with honor, respect, and I also think a certain amount of speed is required, because if you don't make decisions swiftly, now it doesn't mean you should be impatient, right? There's a very fine line there. Like, there's a Goldilocks zone. But if you delay when you should not delay, then you're going to get this backlog inventory of other decisions. And all of a sudden that builds up the anxiety.
I kind of agree, man. Yeah, the longer you wait, the more the more vague and kind of diffuse the whole problem gets. I remember, dude, there was a point where I was working. I was actually working for my dad. We're doing demolition. I remember we're just like, I was doing this thing where I'm just like, I was cutting down. It was like a 7 or 5 or 6 story building. I forget how big it was. And there was like the HVAC shafts just ran all the way down, multiple floors. And I had to go out like into the shaft, hooked up, blah, blah, blah. And, I think I cut this one thing, and it would just fall, like, and it just like smashed something below me. And I remember like, I think I had done this up until that point where I fucked something up, and instantly my brain I'd start making excuses. I'd start being like, who can I kind of blame this on? How can I kind of let myself off the hook? And the situation was so ridiculous. The thing that it was like something was just like obliterated, and there was no room for kind of wiggle room. So I had to just go and be like, hey, I fucked up. And no problem. And it was like, oh shit, all right, well, blah, 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 rather than be like, well, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you can just go and be like, hey, I fucked up. Here's where we're at now. Here's where I'm thinking of going. But here is the situation at hand, and here's my, it's something I struggle with. But it's like, I remember doing that day and being like, oh my God, that was way easier than trying to build some sort of defense for myself, or kind of see how I can let myself. And to be fair, it's like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But yeah, just being like, yeah, I fucked up. And it's like, dude, people will respect that so much more.
Oh, yeah.
Being like, well, you see, that guy was there, and I think it was kind of, blah, blah, blah. And it's just people are just like, oh my God. They're already dealing with the fact that you fucked up, and now they're like, oh, now they're bullshitting me too. It's like, and people see right through it.
Oh yeah. Well, the funny thing is you can see a child do this. Right, like, oh no, the glue that was on the toilet, that was it's the neighbor I saw walk.
Yeah.
Like we think as adults, it doesn't look like that. It for sure looks like that. Like when you're an adult, it's the equivalent of like, oh well, the HVAC and Tim over there, I don't know what he's doing. So I completely agree, and I got to give ASB credit because a couple weeks ago he brought up that he almost brought the ship down. Like he was doing something. I can't articulate it very very well because I don't know the full details, but he messed up. And my first response to him when we talked about it on the podcast was, well, there's just a certain amount of errors that happen when you're going at the correct velocity. Now, maybe it was too much, right? That's where that Goldilocks zone really plays a role. But I think, first of all, you should go fast, 100%. You should always be going fast, especially in your career. The second thing, as long as it's not impatient, and there's a fine line between there. But then also, if you mess up, expect more from yourself than anybody else would expect of you. And if that's the case, then when you do come back to apologize, they can see that you're sorry about it, right? You own the shit and you're like, yeah, I just messed up. I didn't mean to do this, but I'm trying to build this thing and to get us to the next level, and I fucked up. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like really important. If they can actually see that you're sorry about it and that you're being truthful, great way of proceeding with your career.
Yeah, man, dude. And I will say, in my experience, it's about maybe 10%. I'm being generous. 10% of people will do that. Every workplace thing I've ever been in,
it's definitely being generous.
Oh my God,
it's more like 1%.
Yeah, dude. I've seen people fuck jobs up, and then just like when I was working for an electrician, a guy would like just fuck a job up and be like, "Well, the fucking boss put me here. I don't know why he put me on this stupid job. This other guy gets all the good job," and it's just like, what does that have to do with this, dude?
Mm-hmm.
I remember a guy told me one time that the electric was off, and I cut it, and it was like 220. I cut the wire. I cut half of it at a time because I had my little snippers. I saw a little current. He's like, "Oh, that's just leftover current. You're good." And I hit it. And dude, I cut out the power in an office building where there was like plastic surgery and shit going on. Cut the power of the whole building. And he was just like, this dude, I watched this guy just, and I was like, yeah, I cut that and it exploded. Like, like whatever. And dude, and the dude, I watched him totally just kind of like brush on the rug, and I was like, dude, I thought it was off. He's like, just let that one go out. And I was just kind of like, all right, man. But yeah,
man. And I get it because you're trying to protect yourself. Like there's an obvious reason why we're doing it. But yeah, Matt, it is very much less than 1% in my opinion of people. I actually just had this example. We launched this big investment program at a company recently, and this person didn't launch it. This was a person at the company, didn't launch it. And this person got back to me and said, "Oh, well, because you didn't set up the meeting." I was like, no, I didn't care. It's like, okay, like, but it's incorrect, right? Like you can clearly, it's so obvious that this person is trying to create blame around herself because she didn't do her job. It's like, just say it. Like it's in my opinion, it's a sign of immaturity. And immaturity doesn't matter on your age. It's like, just own it. Just own it. You will walk away with way more respect from others if you just own your stuff.
Yeah, even if you fuck up, don't own it, and then just come to your senses and say, "Hey, look, I was a brat. Like, my bad." People be like, "All right, hey, no problem, man. It happens to all of us. We all have the impulse to do that, obviously." Dude, and this is kind of something too, in terms of kind of tying it all together with, even with like your, the imposter situation, imposter syndrome, all of that stuff, and kind of all of this. One of the things that I've come across doing the newer thing for PsychNaw that I really, really like is the idea. There's this word called de-reflection, where it's like you take yourself out of the mix as much as possible. And they use the, like self-actualization. They kind of say like, obviously I guess that's like a helpful thing to think about, but the logotherapy twist on that is kind of like, just focus on actualizing potentials outside of yourself rather than you being this thing. Like, say like that person who was like, "Oh, it's not my fault," because they're just worried about how they look, whether they get a raise, whether they're going to get the title, rather than being like, what's the job? And let me just channel all of my energy to completing this as good as possible. And I'm not really worried about like I've actualized myself. You could just go like, here's all these areas that I've given my all to and developed, outside of myself. And obviously you naturally will kind of come up with them, but it's kind of like when I was reading about it, the way it's like trying to get stuff done with like a mirror in your face all the time. It's like, well, just take the mirror out and just do whatever you're doing and stop worrying about how you look, how it's going to work out for you. Just try to actualize the things outside of yourself that are actually, you feel like are actually calling you. Rather than
can you re-explain that? Because I feel like I'm getting lost. I want to make sure I understand it. Would you mind summarizing it again?
Sure. So rather, like when people think about self-actualization, it's like, I had my career and I'm a boss and I'm the this and I have a big house and I have this and that. And it's like, that stuff's cool and all, but it kind of sets you up to be like not constantly disappointed, but there's a pressure on like yourself and how you look and how you appear to others. But if you kind of take all that focus on yourself, which most of us kind of are like in dialogue with ourselves about ourselves all day, and just put that onto external things, like for me, it would be like worrying about writing, not like, am I a good writer? It's like, what am I writing and how much have I gotten done? Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
You kind of like, it takes away a lot of that worry of like, well, how do I look? And, how is this coming off? And am I good enough? It's like, just worry about actualizing potentials, meaning like things that you haven't done yet, just go do those and see where, see how that goes, rather than being like, am I good enough to do this? How does this look if I just go do it? Just go do the things to the best of your abilities. And then it's like, here's all the things I did, rather than like, I am a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I completely can get on board with that. One book that's come up repeatedly in our scorecard team, that I've told the guys several times, I think this week and last week, is to read Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art, which, Matt, I believe both awesome you and I are super big fans. That kind of hits on that vein. Yes. Like when you are a professional, you can be a professional in a career, you can be a professional in your family life, etc. A professional shows up and puts in the inputs and almost detaches himself or herself from the output, like from the actual result.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I this is my prime example. There's like, you want to be a writer. So either you're like fantasizing about sitting on Oprah's couch with your book, or you're worrying about the plot and putting in the hours of writing. And it's like, they're two very different things. And it's like, it was something I like, I remember like I spent more time worrying about whether or not I would be good at writing than actually writing. And then once I started doing it, I'm like, oh, this is great. I love this. This is fun. It's like you just remove all that just shit is covering you in terms of like, is this good enough? What's going to happen? What am I going to get out of this? Blah, 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 blah. Just take yourself out of the mix for as long as you can and just do that. And if the thing you're doing doesn't, attract you to do it for the sake of the thing itself, it's probably not the right thing for you. You need to find another thing that if just doing it alone gives you enough joy to simply do it, rather than like that kind of like, yeah, I'm going to get, everyone's going to love me and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
It's like, you're putting way too much pressure on an outside thing.
Do you think there's a certain element that should be anticipating or desirous of that reward? Because I know for me, like I have gone in the past, and number one, I've committed to only doing things that I am internally motivated to do. So intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic. I'm definitely on board with that, and I practice that. But I'd also say that in the past, I've tried to go full monk status and just remove my desire.
Sure.
Right. And I could say that when I did that, I was not happy. Like there's a certain amount of me that wants to hunt because I want the kill, if that makes sense. So for me, it's a certain percentage. If it's that Goldilocks zone again, if too much of my action is based off of like 80% of the desired end, then I'm not being true to like what I'm intrinsically motivated to be doing. So Matt, are you saying it should be 0, or are you saying there is room for I do want the house, I do want the whatever that is?
For sure. No, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, it's like try to turn that part off of yourself. You can't. It's like, good luck.
Right.
And it's not like a good, bad thing. It's just, if that kind of like you were saying, like the desirous aspect of everything is clouding everything and that's all there is to it, then it's probably not that fulfilling of a thing. And there's a chance once you get that external thing, it's going to ring kind of hollow and be like, oh, okay, well, what am I going to do now? So it's like, yeah, no. And I always, you're not going to be able to turn that off. Like that part of yourself, like, I still want to sit on Oprah's couch. I'd be a liar to be like, check out my book. And everyone's like, and I'm like, Like, that's not going away anytime soon, but I could not torture myself with that kind of stuff. I can scale that back as much as possible. It's still going to be there, but I can instead start focusing on like, what is this stuff I'm creating actually doing for anybody else besides myself? And you start to see like, damn, that's like, you get a lot of pleasure from that too. It's just, we're not kind of taught to kind of, maybe we are, I don't know, but it's like, it wasn't very obvious to me that we can kind of like create value for other people outside of ourselves and start to kind of snowball that way, rather than kind of being like, on some like death or glory mission, for ourselves.
Yep. Completely agree.
So yeah, it's one of those, it just helps to kind of like it's not like an on-off switch. It's just like, let's put another filter on it and like look at it through this way. That stuff's still going to be there, but now maybe it'll kind of lessen if it's bothering us. For some people, like I said, there's no real one size fits all. So for some people, it's like they love that whole thing and that works for them. For some people, it's like, and I can say for myself, it's like some of the stuff, you know, more of I would do certain things and like hit certain levels and it would just feel like completely empty. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? And then it's like once I started doing stuff that kind of more involved other people or had like more of like a feedback, like, hey, this helped me. I was like, oh, that feels kind of good, rather than being like, hey, you're the man. It's like, well, thanks if you insist, but it's like I don't really feel like the man. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of got to see like what exactly gives you the juice, if that makes sense.
Yep, completely agree. As weird as this might sound, I think Denzel Washington is actually a great example of this. We actually watched some Denzel Washington interviews on the scorecard team this week, but I've been a big fan for the last decade because his focus is not on Hollywood. His focus is on his craft, and also at the same time, he does not exaggerate the importance of his craft. The video that we watched this week, he's like, we make movies. And he was talking to another, like 5 or 6 other actors. He's like, let's never inflate this. At the end of the day, this is not hard, right? Like we love our crafts and we do what we love. He's like, but it's hard if you have to send a kid off to Afghanistan and he gets killed. That's hard. Like this stuff is not hard. So do your craft, focus on the inputs, take whatever rewards, but don't be so attached to the rewards that's why you're doing it. And that's why I love learning from him, because he's not the typical Hollywood type of actor. Very successful guy that's not just in it for the trophies and sitting on Oprah's couch.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's one of those things too. And I struggle with this too. It's like, it's not so much of, and it's a lot of this stuff's presented to us as like an either or kind of setup, but it's not really, we're very complicated, and it's like our minds are very chaotic. So it's like a lot of times it's like, well, try this. A lot of times people will be like, well, I'm supposed to not do that. It's like, no. Like it's like that's part of your nature, and that's always going to be there, but it can be scaled back in a way that's more functional, so that you can start to discover kind of new areas. Because there's a lot of times we like, we think of our values. It's like, well, here's the one thing I want, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, all right, that's cool. I hope you get it. But in case, say that you don't, or say that you get it and you say, this actually, now I'm bored, or it doesn't feel that great. It's like, it is helpful to have like a ton of different area of value areas that you can kind of explore and kind of see how they feel. And it's like, I think doing the goal setting thing that you did was that helped me do that big time, because before it was like, well, I guess all I can think about is a career now, and that's the only thing I'm operating on. Then you start throwing the other thing like family, active love, this and that. And you're like, oh yeah, how could I consciously expand myself in those areas that like kind of enhances? Like, there's not just one thing that kind of enhances life. There's a ton of them, and it's like, how many of those can I plug into my life and have this as a more kind of holistic endeavor, rather than just kind of like, I'm going to get the promotion, everything. And it's like, yeah, okay, good luck.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, man. Well, with that being said, here's the big question: who is dude of the week? That's the big question.
Make the poll.
We got it. We got to throw Delco Jim up on there. I saw Ray requested he be put up on there. Delco Jim be put up on there because Delco Jim did this fundraiser for delivering socks, I believe, to homeless people, right? Delco Jim, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he crushed it, launched this big fundraiser and just crushed it. Plus he's getting out there, he's working, doing stand-up comedy, doing all of these things, showing up to the scorecard team meetings, etc. So we got to put Delco Jim up on there, honestly. And I want to throw Ray up on there because his consistency, I think he's hit every single day for scorecard, and also I believe for the workout sessions, Rhomas workout sessions and Rhomas scorecard team practice sessions. Dude, I think he's hit it for 3 months straight now. I don't think he's ever missed a day.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and he said he got the abs to prove it. Yeah, he's starting to get a 6-pack, man. It's pretty cool.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to throw him up on there.
I got to throw the Jordan man up there. I got to throw M. Gunth.
Jordan's a beast.
Jordan's out in the fucking snow, dude.
Dude, he took a picture of him and a bunch of cows, and we talked about this morning on the scorecard team. He's like, yeah, I don't have much. I don't have many cows. We just got 12 or so. And Ray's like, that's it? Just 12 cows? We lead very different lives.
Yeah, man. No, it's pretty wild. It's pretty awesome too. Anyone else wants to toss themselves up right now? I have Delco Jim, Jordan, Ray, M. Gunther, Troy. Who else? And if not, I'll seal it and add the poll. Going once. All right.
Yep, let's do it.
There we go. Let's all right, the poll's up, dude. Let's see what's going on. What's the plan for the weekend while we wait for the poll?
I'm gonna try my best to take a little bit of a breather to like get off some of this steam. But probably the breather's gonna look like probably a massive amount of exercise, hikes,
Nice.
etc. And I really want to start crushing on this weight loss competition, like really start dropping the pounds. I'm shooting to drop, let's say 10 pounds by the end of 7 to 10 pounds by the end of the month. That's the goal.
Oh yeah, same here. Actually, I'm gonna try to get into the low 170s. That's the
Nice.
I'm gonna try to do it in a way too where I don't kind of emaciate myself and drain all my energy, because I did that the first time, and it just I just put the weight right back on.
Yeah.
Which was fine. It was more of an exercise and fasting, but I do want to find a more kind of sustainable way, which I think I have. And obviously, it is just that density diet, man.
Yep.
Wake up in the morning, it's green drink 2 days in a row. Then I treat myself to an acai bowl the third day, 2 more green drinks, and that's just it. And then my 2 meals are just heavy amounts of broccoli, a little, like half the meat I usually eat, and then some potatoes or rice. That's it.
Nice.
They've been falling down.
Yeah. And I'm basically doing the same exact thing. Cool. We've got
Jesus Christ. It's a 4-way tie. Oh, Delco Jim's freaking out. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Delco Jim's taking it. He's taking it.
Oh, Delco Jim, Smarty Jones, and dude, he's just pulling off.
It's tough to I gotta give him credit. It is tough to compete with him creating so much value in the community. Like, that's a tough thing, because that is a completely, first of all, it's a big project, and it's something that most people just don't do, right? Like, we all have the ability to do it, but how many of us actually take the time to go out there and serve the community like he did? I mean, that's a tough thing to beat. So it's cool to watch him grow. So what do you think, Matt? Give it 5 more seconds.
Yeah, it seems like we can call the state right now. I think it's Jim. He's pulled ahead too high.
Delco Jim, due to the week. I'm not even sure if he's on right now. He's probably just crushing more sock drives. I don't think he's on right now. So somebody's got to let him know.
He was earlier. So, all right. Oh, there he is. How many? I'd be curious too, because I know Ray's got 2 now. Delco Jim might have 3. I'm gonna make the shirt. I'm gonna make the dude of the week shirt.
Yes, please. Yeah, Delco Jim, he's crushing it, man. Like, if there is Matt, exactly what you and I were going for, to build a team that serves each other, that's a circle, not a triangle, and it's about holistic performance, right? Like, show me another guy that can do a split, run a sock drive, do stand-up comedy, right? Apply, he's got a different job since he's joined, like all of this, that's the definition of holistic performance. So awesome to have you on the team, Delco Jim. You keep on inspiring me, and I know I can speak for the other guys. You're inspiring everybody. So great fucking job, man. Keep on doing it.
Hell yeah, dude. 100%.
Cool. How about you, man? What's the plan for the weekend?
Plan for the weekend is I will have the psych null. I'm like completely focused on the psych null video. I need to have that finished. I am just gonna relax, do it like you were saying, do a little exercise, spend some family time, and just kind of get all my cooking and kind of meal prep stuff done, and that's it.
No. So final thing I got to leave the guys with: pickleball.
Sure,
dude. Started playing pickleball recently. You guys got to get on it, man. It's like if you could imagine ping pong as a hybrid with tennis. So it's like a small tennis court, and you get these kind of large ping pong paddles with a wiffle ball. Dude, Matt, next time you come out here, man, we got to do it. Yeah, play with my girlfriend. It's awesome. It's so awesome. Fun. Yeah, we'll play for like an hour or 2, and like, it's
awesome. Yep, I love shit like that.
Yeah, yes. All right, dudes. Have a great weekend.
Later on.